So number 30. Oh man, nice, good choice. Okay, torque required to accelerate a rotating object if it starts at 10 degrees per second and increases to 50 degrees per second in 2 seconds and has a radius of 3 meters and a mass of 100 kilograms. So now we've got something that's legitimately complicated that we're gonna have to go and break down. So the first thing we're gonna use is, let's obviously pull up our wonderful equation sheet. So notice torque equals the inertia times the acceleration. So what that means for this specific example is we're going to go ahead and figure that t we need equals the acceleration. Well, what's the change in acceleration here? Because it obviously accelerated up to that speed. Okay.
Would it just be the 10 to the 50?
Yeah, so from 10 to 50, so the total change there is what?
40.
Bingo. And so with a total change of 40, it did that in 2 seconds. So now 40 divided by 2 gives us an acceleration of what?
20.
Bingo. So we've got 20 degrees per second squared multiplied by, so now we need to get our inertia, and our inertia equals our mass multiplied by our radius squared. So in this example, our mass is 100 kilograms, and then our radius is 3 meters, and so then that'll be to the second power. So what we'll have is T, I know Tinks, I pushed you off the counter like some Lion King stuff earlier because you wouldn't let me just work. So we got 20 times 100 times 9 because we did the 3 squared. So then, I'm sorry, my cat's being a brat. She's being cute, she's being a brat. Yes, I know, Tinker Stinker. I know. I gotta teach the kids, okay? Okay, you'll get pets later. But for now, 4. All right, so 20 times 9 is going to be 180. So that's times 100. So then when we bring it all together, we've got 18000 Newton meters. Questions there, Sydney?
No, thank you.
Anytime, anytime.
And then on number 38, I know the least type of force is the shear. Would the most be compressive?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So most is it goes compression, then tension, then shearing force. Shear. Spelling. Don't worry, I'm not going to take off for spelling. As long as I can figure out what you were trying to say. If I'm looking at what you spelled, I'm like, I have no idea what this is supposed to say, that's what I'll take off. But seeing as how it's take home and you guys have the power of autocorrect and the Googles, I have higher expectations. What other questions do you guys have? Okay. Seeing as how we have a hush falling over the crowd, my question to you guys, if So go ahead, take a shot, guys. What do you think the answer is to 58 and 59? Can you guys read what I put up for 58 and 59? Good. Compression answering which one of them, Sydney?
58.
Think about it. If you're hanging from the bar, okay, your body weight is being supported by your hands, okay? So what are your hips and legs actively doing to your low back?
Isn't it like stretching it out?
And what type of force is that when it's stretching it out?
Oh, would that be compressive also? Or no, that'd be tension.
Bingo. Bingo.
Okay.
So you'd have tension in what part of your back?
Your low back.
Good. Now, what about in your cervical spine?
Would that also be tension?
Think about it.
Would that be the compressive force?
That would be compression because your weight is being pulled through your shoulders. So you're going to have that tractioning through of all the structures underneath. But your head is still pushing down on your neck through your cervical spine. And it's not a good call to try to, give yourself a lot of cervical spine traction specifically through your entire body weight, because I don't think I need to go that far into the reason why that's not a good thing. Yes, I know, Tinks. Can you guys hear this? So, Jessica and Haley and Cameron, is there anything that you guys would like me to go ahead and review for your final?
Can you go back over the length tension curve, like how it affects performance?
Yeah, no worries. Now, the length tension curve, thank you, Tinks, is going to be the fact that our muscles are going to produce an optimal amount of force at a certain percentage of the resting length. So our muscles are going to be stronger typically in the midpoint of the range of motion, and they're going to be weakest in the most extended position, and they're going to be technically they're a little bit stronger there because you can use the passive effects of your tendons and effectively, and the parallel elastic component to increase force. But obviously, if you get too far to the end range, you literally tear the muscle off the bone. And then we're going to be weaker in the shortest position. So when we're thinking about how it affects performance, well, when it comes to the flexibility and mobility of an athlete, there's going to actually be an optimal amount of flexibility. We want them to be flexible enough that they can go through the full range of motion of the sport, and not just the full range of the motion of the sport, but beyond that, if possible, because like anything else, that muscle is going to be the strongest more through that mid-range. So if just getting into the 4-point stance or the 3-point stance in football is like the end range of motion, like they're completely stretched out, they're not going to be that strong in that position. Plus, they're going to be massively increasing the risk of injury because, once again, once we move the muscle beyond its full range of motion, pop goes the weasel. Thanks. You would think that all we do is neglect them. The joys of working from home. So when it comes to the length tension curve, it tells us a little bit about how we need to worry about mobility for athletes and flexibility. So that way we make sure that they're obviously in a better position for producing the force and decreasing risk of injury. Now, the second part is we can pick technical decisions of how we want to make sure that we're putting them in a position where they're going to be in a more optimal essential leverage to produce force or to receive that force. So like anything else, if I use the cheerleading analogy, when you have to hold a person overhead, the more lined up you have them straight over your body, the stronger you're going to be, because then you think about that lever arm and the length of it and the force you have to produce. If you try to hold something out to the side, it's going to be a lot more difficult because now you've lengthened the lever arm that muscle now has to produce. And you already tend to be in those locked out positions in that fully contracted position, which isn't that strong, but as long as it's biomechanically lined up, it doesn't have to be that strong. Does that make sense there, Jessica?
Yeah. Thank you.
Anytime. All right, Haley, Cam, any questions?
I think I'm good.
I'm good as well.
All right. Now, have you guys taken a shot at doing the King of the Hill quiz on Blackboard yet?
I haven't.
Okay, do it. So the way that works, guys, is whoever gets the highest grade on it, they get an immediate extra 50 points of extra credit. So it only takes your highest grade that you've done out of all of them. It's just a battery of all the multiple choice questions you've seen before in the class, between the homeworks, between obviously the quizzes, and then also a couple that are actually going to be on the final. So it's another way to kind of help you study for it. And however, every question is worth 1/10 of a point. And each of those 1/10 of a point questions that you get correct, that's also extra credit points you get built in. So even if the person who wins got, I don't know, 60 questions right, and they get, not just the 6 points for 1/10 of a question right per each, but then they get the extra 50 bonus points. Well, if you get 59, so you got 5.9, you still just got 5.9 points of extra credit. So it's only going to help you with your studying and or give you a really solid bolster on your final grade, but it can't hurt you. So that's going to be open until Sunday. So I thoroughly suggest doing that when you get a chance. And yeah, really trying to give it a number of shots. Usually the person who wins has literally done it like 10 to 20 odd times to get that highest score. And since you guys are being good students, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my Blackboard in another tab, because every time I open it up, it's always an exciting thing of, you have 80 bajillion more things to grade from all of the activity classes you're teaching, because the universe has a sense of humor. Look no further than the platypus. Make sure you guys also get in those final labs. I'm obviously grading them pretty laxly since things got massively modified over what we would prefer, but that's okay. So now that I got this bad boy open on up, I don't think anybody else is coming to visit us today, and that's okay. So right now, really? So good news for you guys, seeing as how we only have 4 students in the lecture today, and I will put this up on the interwebs afterwards, but Yeah, guys. Currently, guess what the high score is on the King of the Hill?
What is it?
It's currently 0.
How long has this been up?
Actually, now I realize why it's currently 0, because it's currently not up. I am so smart. SMRT. Okay, so now it's going to be up. So look at that. The 4 of you guys have got a major competitive advantage. It is going to be up from now until May 4th at 11:30 p.m. Whenever you click start, it gives you 15 minutes to, get through as many questions as you can. It only takes your highest grade, so you'll never get penalized for doing it more times or less times. And wow, boy, this is what happens when you don't check boxes. So, yeah, man. Now, this is where I'm going to let you guys have your own ethical decision. I put it up and it has a due date. So in theory, when people sign in the Blackboard, they'll see that this thing is due and they know that's an option. But you guys have the choice to not tell any of your classmates the fact that you know about this. So then it becomes effectively a competition between the 5 of you. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but I will simply say, definitely sit down and go through it. And if anything, it might help. It's meant to help as just kind of a study guide to really, aside from obviously the true study guide, but to really help you guys go through a couple of the other minutia. Because for some of the short answers that are going to be on the final exam, you're going to have to think things through and really write them out. So, wow, I'm glad we looked at that. Otherwise, we'd be like, man, why didn't I know the kid's trying to do it? So, any other questions, comments, concerns? Are you guys comfortable with getting on the rest of your day with, being done with class before 10?
When will how long is the final exam going to be up on Blackboard? Or like what days?
Yeah. Give me 1 second, Sid. Sorry, Sydney. Do you ever go by the contraction of your name?
People call me it, but it doesn't really matter to me. I normally just say Sydney.
Okay, well, it turns out my full name is Michael, but the only people that usually call me by that name is my mom when I've done something wrong, or my late grandmother, typically also because I did something wrong. Okay, so your final exam is now open. It's literally going to be open from, it's open this morning all the way until about literally 9:54 a.m. on May 5th. So obviously for that, you've only got the chance to take it once. When you click start, you have an hour and 20-minute timer. So you got a pretty good chunk of time to work on it. And then, so let's go ahead and double check on your actual final exam, the group version. That opens at 9 a.m. on May 5th, and that will be open until 1 o'clock in the afternoon on May 7th. So you effectively have from now until Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. to finish the final. And then the group version opens just a little bit of overlap, but not a lot, until Thursday at 1 o'clock. And then that King of the Hill is going to be open effectively through Monday morning. So, what other questions can I help you guys sort?
When will you be adding the extra credit in from like the survey and then the thing that we come in and done with like the fire suit and stuff?
Yeah, no, and I really appreciate you, Cam, coming in and doing the load carriage study. Now, yeah, here's how it's going to go. Once I get through all of the grading stuff for honest and activity classes, because those effectively are done at the end of the day today. So once I got all those things graded for those classes, then I'm going to work on making sure I got all the, not just everything graded for my actual lecture classes, which I pretty much am on the ball of, except for projects in bioenergetics. But once I get all of that grading done, so everybody kind of knows, here's my grade without any inflation, extra credit. Then I'm going to go through, look at the survey data, put all that in, look at, obviously, who did the load carriage, and put all that in. And I'll put in the King of the Hill stuff once it gets done on Monday. And then from there, actually, also, while I have you guys on the call, let's see here. So currently it's telling me, by it, I mean, my Blackboard gradebook is saying the semester is out of 1,366 points, which is probably not correct, but just because there's a couple artifacts in here that I don't do anymore. But the assignments are still up as things that have, yeah, point values. So that's a minus 50. Minus another 50. I have too many extra credit opportunities in this class. Another 50. Okay, so currently your final point total for the semester is going to be out of about 200, and I'm coming up with 16 points. Okay. Or sorry, yeah, 1,216 points. So what that means is, like anything else, you know, that's without adding in the extra credit, that's without adding in the, you guys obviously taking the final exam. So you figure you have to subtract 1/10 of that, so 121.6 for each letter grade. So that means in order to get an A in the class, you need to have gotten 1,095 points, which, looking at everybody's grades so far, and mind you, this is collectively for the class, not specific individuals, but it looks like a lot of, we actually got a couple folks that looks like they can actually get an A with just taking the individual final, not even doing the group one, so good for them. And then for a B, it's going to turn out to be a grand total of 974 points. And then for a C, that's as far as I'm going down the alphabet, because if I got to go further, it's going to make me sad. 853 points, effectively. So, cool. Yes, Haley.
How do we know if we just need to take the individual? How'd you say to calculate that?
Oh, okay. So, allegedly, because I'm looking at your numbers right now, and I want you to go ahead and figure out your grade and everything. Plus, like I said, I still have to incorporate extra credit and otherwise. if you just look at how many points you need to get, and I will just give you your final exam grade for your group final exam grade. Because it's the same exam. There's
Okay.
changes. So if you're like, you know, let's say allegedly you're one of those people who technically already has a B thanks to the grades they have. If you're like, you know what, I got at least a C on that, meaning 70 odd points, then obviously I'm just going to go ahead and just double that 70 over. So you're going to have netted another 140 points, which will put you comfortably into the A range. Now, really check with your math and obviously make sure you're not being overconfident, because once you finish the exam, it will give you at least, you know, the multiple choice credit grade, but it's not going to give you the short answer grade. So obviously, if a lot of that stuff was really off base, don't be overly confident, but at the same time, you guys are young, smart people, you know, think it through. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with saving yourself time, because let's be honest, guys, we're all limited by the same 24 hours in the day. You guys have got other classes that I'm sure some of them are more difficult than this course. And then you have other courses that are going to be obviously easier. And how you're going to apportion your time to get through finals week and everything else going on with your lives, because I'm not going to even, you know, imagine I know the realities that you guys are currently having to deal with. Hence why I'm trying to make this as friendly as possible. But if people are going to be mean to me, I'm not going to be nice either, because I'm not a punching bag, emotional or otherwise. But that is thankfully not the people that show up to lectures. And let me tell you guys, the one thing I have really liked about this is when you're lecturing in class, you know, everybody shows up, but turns out only the students that actually at least seem to enjoy it or are good students are the ones that show up, and are good students, show up to these Zoom lectures. So it is kind of nice in that most of the ones that show up are the ones that actually want to be here. And I'm not saying the ones listening to this later are bad students. I'm simply saying I do find an interesting correlation there based upon my very limited amount of evidence. So, any other questions as of right now?
Did you say the final was going to be 70 points?
No, no.
Oh,
I was saying that, like, she's hypothetically with the conversation we were having about the grade on the final exam. Go ahead and get myself over to it. Of course, I've got way too many things that I've had you guys take. So I've got to go through like all the homework grades and all the lab grades and all the happy things you get to go through, which, yeah. Okay, so your final exam currently, yeah, both of them are worth 100 points, or they're out of 100 points. Now, there actually is a couple extra credit questions built in there, because I've learned throughout the year, I don't curve the class, I just build in enough extra points that people are going to be able to get the grade that they're looking for, with just obviously putting in some extra work in a couple different ways, potentially. So yes, so each one is worth 100. So hence, let's say right now you have exactly a grand total of 800 and say 895 points. Well, that means in theory you got to get 100 back to back on, or at least 100-point average on the individual final exam and the group final exam. It's freaking take home. Mind you only have 2 hours, so you still got to know what you're doing going into it, but you still have all of your different information in front of you. Obviously, even throughout the normal semester, I was giving you guys, here's your equation sheet, do it to it. So that should be feasible for anyone that A, is willing to put in the work, and B, has already been putting in the time studying. Now, you then have the king of the hill thing, which you can do, which is going to net you a couple extra credit points. And then there's the fun with biomechanics that you can go ahead and do with the superhero homework and turn that in. and get some other points on top of that. So in reality, you could have right now, you know, you are that legitimate 200 points from an A, and it is quite feasible for you to still pull an A out of the class. It's like everything else in life, it's going to require the effort, but it's very doable. If you guys don't have any more direct questions, I can go ahead and stop with the, actually, here's what I'm gonna do, because I can chat privately with you guys. If you guys are comfortable, I'll shoot you a message and on the chat and kind of be like, hey, in theory, here's what you need to get. Man, you guys are doing really good. Nice. Okay. Man, I love getting to say good news. It doesn't happen that much. So what I'm sending you guys is literally based upon all of the points that you have so far. That's not obviously with any of that extra credit stuff yet. So don't, yeah, jeez, that's ridiculous. Now, mind you, I'm not looking forward to the crazy amount of emails I'm probably going to be getting about, so I know I haven't really shown up to class or really shown any interest. Is there any way that you can give me an A? So once again, guys, this is without adding in all that other extra credit. So don't freak out if you see it and be like, oh gosh, I'm screwed, because you're not. You guys are all doing really good. So did you guys all got that those messages from me?
You said, and this is to get an A.
That's to get an A.
Okay.
So if you guys want to know how much you need to get a B, subtract 120 points from that number, which is a pretty good situation to be in. I would say, at least. So if you know you're going to get 20 points of extra credit from doing the firefighting load carriage, subtract 120 from that number. You know, same thing with the survey data, subtract that from that number. If you're going to go do some more of the biomechanics breakdown, bingo, subtract that from that number again. So it's all really feasible, guys. It's just staying on top of it. And yeah, you guys are doing really good. Really good. Because, you know, like anything else, the goal is never to punish you guys with work and everything. But in my mind, it seems, and I am genuinely interested in your guys' opinion, but I believe my class is probably one of the harder classes in the department. Is that accurate, or am I completely off base there?
I missed that. You kind of cut out for a minute.
Okay. I'm sorry. I said that my class is probably one of the harder ones in the department, in the major.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. So, you know, I like you guys and not trying to punish anybody with work, but at the same time, I'm going to make sure people learn. So anything else you guys want me to go ahead and review, or any other little piece of information? You guys are otherwise doing okay back home or wherever the world has taken you? Any of you guys need protein powder? No? Take that as a as a hard pass? All right, well, guys, enjoyed the first part of the semester getting to work with you guys in the classroom, and we try to make it work for the second half. Whenever finally things get back to normal, don't be a stranger. Come by. Obviously, in theory, a lot of you guys I'm going to have in XPhys or bioenergetics. Obviously, Blaine's already survived one of those two, but yeah, don't be a stranger, guys. Keep your head above water, and if you guys need anything, shoot me an email. Like I said, I'm just going to be hanging out here, hoping the cat will leave me alone so I can work on some grading. And yeah, stay safe, guys. Miss you, and have a great day. All right, guys. Bye-bye.